I'd like my husband to do it. So this is my version. I don't know what the version is at home.
I'll tell you the truth in just a minute.
So Larry was gracious enough to say yes, he should. So we're all excited. Welcome, have a seat. So Larry's here to talk about the work. And the interesting thing about this show is, from my point of view, it was really hard to install because even though all the work is by Karen, you can kind of see the breakdown of how I arrange this, and it took me over an hour to figure out where to place things.
So imagine how long I'm going to talk.
And I did ask Karen, I said, do you have any that are your favorites? Oh, you got any that you want in the show? So these two came down to not being in the show because I just couldn't fit with the flow. And then Larry comes in later that day and he goes, oh, that's one of her favorites, and I'm talking about it. Really? So, and this one was one of her favorites. She didn't tell me that. But anyways, I went ahead and put them on easels on Friday night, and this one sold. So that's a great story. And Larry's going to talk about that, and this maybe, but yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to Larry.
It's not often that you get a chance to talk about your spouse in public, and she has no recourse but to remain silent. So just to correct Ted a little bit, Karen did not ask me to do this. She got this email from Ted, and she turned to me and she said, oh, what am I going to do? I don't want to talk. And I said, well, just tell Ted I'll do it. And she said, what? And I said, yeah, just tell Ted I'll do it. And then if he says yes, it'll be his fault and not yours. Okay, so that's the first thing you have to know. Karen did not put me up to this. The second thing is also rather obvious. That is, I'm biased. I do have an abiding love for my wife. Therefore, I have an abiding love for her art. This art has been with us really from the beginning. So I do have I do have that to warn you about, that I'm not going to speak in negative and critical ways, because I have to go home tonight. But on the other hand, even though I'm biased, I have to say it's not completely my opinion. There is a retired art historian and professor of art from Lynchburg College, now the University of Lynchburg, who's told me that Karen is one of 5 or 6 of the best artists in Lynchburg. 6. So you probably are wondering who the other 5 are. Well, I'm not going to tell you, because if you're an artist, you can imagine it's you. And if you're a patron and you like consuming art, you can imagine that you've made a good choice. Okay. So what I'd like to do this evening, I'll try to refrain from going on and on, because I have a tendency to do that. But what I'd like to do is maybe give you a little bit of Karen's biography, a little bit about her background. And then I want to talk about what I think makes her art so wonderful. And it really comes down to 3 things that I will expand on just a little bit. Number 1, as Ted has pointed out, the variety. Incredible richness of skill and scope within art. And it's not just painting. She's done pottery, and she's done sculptural work. She does I don't know what you call it, boxes, you know, with little assemblage. Okay, so she has incredible variety. So it's her variety, the vitality that's in her art, and the value of her art. So I want to talk about her variety. She's already frowned about it. So I want to talk about her variety, the vitality in her art, and its value. And then I'd like to take just a little brief time to talk about a couple or 3 of the works and give you a little bit of the inside story about them. Does that sound okay? All right. Okay, so Karen comes from a long line of artists. Her grandmother is was a recognized regional artist in New England who did oils and watercolors. And her work really, every now and then it comes up for auction, and you see it. Mary Ann Merrill, a very, very fine artist. Her mother, Janet Michelson Clasper, is an internationally shown and recognized artist. Karen's mother has worked in Asia and Europe and all over the United States. She was primarily a watercolorist, although she did oils and acrylics as well. And so Karen comes by this naturally. It's either in the genes or in the environment. We don't know whether it's nurture or nature, of course, but she comes by it honestly. She comes from a family of really wonderful painters and artists. She went to Ohio Wesleyan University and studied art education. And after she graduated with her degree in art education, she was going to teach for a while. But sort of at the last minute changed her mind and decided she was going to go on and do some more schooling. So she went to Rome. She did some bronze work in Rome with Tyler School of Art through Temple University. And then she was going to come back after that summer and start teaching as an art educator. But at the last minute, she had this draw to California, which is where I was at the time. And she changed her mind. She decided she wasn't going to teach. She got on the airplane with her folks who were moving to California, and she found the reason why. That's where we met. And while I was at school in Berkeley, Karen continued to paint and to do art. She took classes at UC San Francisco while I was studying there. And then when we moved to South Dakota, she took courses at Sioux Falls University with a colleague of mine. I was teaching after I left Berkeley there. And then when we moved east, she's taken classes at Ramath-Macon Women's College. She's worked with what time enough? See, she doesn't. This is why she doesn't want to talk. Because Karen and I have one thing in common, and that is that we don't enjoy talking about ourselves. I don't mind talking about her, but she doesn't like to talk about herself. And it's not really that we're modest or humble or anything. It's just that I don't know what to say, and I don't find myself all that interesting. So we don't like to do this, which is why I'm doing it for her. So that's a little bit about Karen's kind of academic background. Now I want to talk about her work, her art. And I said that one of the things that I found to be a great strength of hers is her variety. You know, I think too often artists become trapped by their art. That is to say, they stumble on a style or they have some success with a particular look that they're creating that makes for sales or something, and they just sort of get stuck doing the same thing over and over again for whatever reasons. There are multiple reasons, maybe because they enjoy the attention or something, but what happens, I think, is that the creative well runs dry when you do that, and you become a production worker instead of an artist. You're out there producing things that you know are going to work and are going to sell. You have a style that everybody can look and say, oh, that's a Karen Bowden. Well, one of the things about Karen is that she works in so many different styles, approaches, mediums, that you can't really kind of pigeonhole her down to doing just one thing over and over and over again. Oh, that's a Karen. Oh, that's a Karen. Yeah, as soon as you see it, you know. And frankly, I find that rather boring. You know, you see the same thing over and over again. But Karen doesn't do that. She's always exploring. She's always trying new techniques. She's always looking for different subject matter in different mediums. She's pushing herself into what's novel and untried for her. And what just, I mean, it just amazes me when you look around this room. She does everything really well. You know, it's not that everything is a success. I live with her. I see the floor of the studio. But the fact that she has the desire, the energy to try new things and not get stuck or trapped with a look or something that's, you know, always going to be recognizable and the same. So that variety I find to be a terrific strength, to be able to do so many things so well. But what makes her work additionally exciting and wonderful is its vitality. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I find Karen's work is vital because it has what I like to think about as an interiority. Does that make sense? There is an inner quality, an inner dimension to that work that goes beyond just simply the surface of the paint. It's something that's within the work. It's hard to talk about, but it's what animates. In other words, it's the soul. There's soul to the work. Something that gives it life that is greater than just its utility value. You know, will it sell? Will it look nice over the couch? You know, will it speak to some nice experience I had? You know, it's really not that simple. There's a quality of depth that I think is hard to talk about, hard to describe, but it's what makes her work so so vital. But if it's not just on the surface of the paint, how do you see it? How do you know it's there? How would you recognize what that interiority is? Well, I think it's a little like recognizing the truth when you see it. How do you know the truth when you see it? Well, for one thing, it stands the test of time. It's not ephemeral and it doesn't change with whim. There's something about its presence that abides, that lasts, that keeps giving. You've looked at that painting 100 times, it's been above the fireplace forever, and I still can't stop looking at it. Well, it's not that you haven't seen its color or its shape or its forms or any of the rest of it, but it's because it's alive. There's something inside it that brings it to life and brings you to life for experiencing it and participating with it. So it's really more than just a thing. And I mean, I've lived with this stuff and I never tire of looking at many other things that Karen does. Because of that interior dimension that doesn't disappear in the way of whim or an impulse buy or something of that order does. It stays with you, it abides. One way to say that, I think, is that Karen's paintings are true. They tell the truth. They give you that inner sense that appeals to something larger than just its appearances. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's what I think gives her work vitality, is that it has that interiority about it that goes beyond just simply its appearance. And finally, I want to talk about the other thing that I think is so important about her work, and that's its value. And I'm not talking here market price. I'm talking about value. You know, I think it was Oscar Wilde who said that a cynic is someone who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. Karen's work has a value regardless of what the price may be. And what I mean by value is it tells you something. It gives you something. It doesn't tell you in a sense of it being message work, or that she's trying to convey, you know, some social or political idea or some profound message. No, it speaks to you in a different way. It doesn't speak to your head. If it doesn't speak to your head and yet it's telling you something, what does it speak to? It speaks to your heart. Her work, I think, is powerful because it's felt more than it's thought. She captures the feeling of whatever it is she's doing. And these are all related because that feeling is very much a part of what gives it its vitality and what its variety is. Because this feeling that she communicates in everything she does speaks to what we should be seeing in the heart and the life of anything we really pay attention to. And I think what art does and what Karen does so amazingly well in so many different ways is to pay attention in a manner that awakens something felt inside of us that is important, and indeed that feeling is probably the most important and most precious experience we can have. We've got plenty of head stuff going on in this culture, in this society. But to have something that communicates in a way that brings our mind and our heart together in a visual moment that allows us to see something that we've never seen before or never seen in quite the same way before and feel connected and bound with it and a part of it, I think is an extraordinarily special gift. And from my way of seeing, Karen's got that. And that's what gives value to her work, regardless of what its price is. Okay, now I want to just stop being so heady and philosophical and give you some inside, maybe some little inside stories about her work. Okay, about some of the pieces, just for example, and then if you want to have conversation about some, we can. Well, Ted mentioned these to start with in the front. Now, he said that these are two that I particularly like, and I can tell you why I like them. Doesn't mean that you have to like them, but one of the things that strikes me about both of these paintings, and I'm not an art historian, so Charles, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but to me they have a kind of focus quality to them. And the thing that is so fascinating is look at all the black that's in there. You know, you don't want to use black when you paint. It's so heavy, it's so powerful. It's really hard to use and execute well. And that's why you don't see a lot of black in paintings. But look how powerful and bold it makes these images. Okay, you've got a nice rainy night in Lynchburg here. Okay? And those darks and those blacks in there, or in this what kind of pond is this? Lily pond? Yeah, lily pond. Look at how these blacks allow those colors to just pop out and bring a quality of life to that pond, regardless of whether you can see literally, oh, I see the lilies and so forth. There's something about its liveliness that these heavy black lines that normally could destroy a painting actually bring it to life because of the way it works with the color and the form. Okay? Yes.
Can we bring it out here?
You want to bring it out, Ted? Yeah, bring it out. Lagunitas. The very last one that you didn't know their name.
Yeah.
Okay, this is pretty cool because when I've had meetings here, my friend Ted here, he's such a great guy. You know, I could always come into the front gallery and know exactly where my painting was going to be. Because, as Ted told me honestly, which I appreciate, he said, Larry, it just doesn't go with anything. So we put it over there in the corner. Well, here's the one. Where did she come up with this subject matter? Well, I have a friend who collects beer. Collects in the sense that when he's out riding his bicycle, he finds where teenagers have stashed their beer. And he picks it up and he carries it home. He doesn't drink beer, but he saves it for me. And so one day he came up and he gave me his stash. And there was a can of Lagunitas beer, which I never heard of. Anybody heard of that? Oh, you will. High school teacher, exactly. So this can was so wonderful. I said, Karen, you better painting that. So she did. And she picked up some of the forms and some of the images that are on the can, and you can see the Lagunitas ale. And then she's just kind of done this free, playful, exciting.
What he doesn't tell you is that
No, he cannot say anything.
that canvas was in the basement for like 10 years. Empty. Like, do something with it.
The deal here was you didn't want to talk. Okay, all right, let's go. Thank you. I just wanted to show this one as an example of something that's really wild. Now, Ted, if you don't mind carrying the paintings.
Yep.
I want to show you another one. Give you a little insight about another one.
Yep. Which one?
Okay, let's do this one here called Brothers. Now this is really kind of interesting. You would never know this from looking at the painting. There's another painting back here called Sisters, which is a little bit earlier. A little bit later than this one. But this painting called Brothers, Karen did from a tintype. I collect early photography, and I have a tintype which I will pass around. They come in these little cases, you know, with these little tintype cases. This one is broken, so okay. So there's the tintype that was the basis for this painting, and part of the reason that this became so fascinating was because when I was looking at this tintype, this has got glass on it, but it's a case that if you use a suction cup, you can pop this out and look behind it and so forth. And so as I was cleaning the glass and I was going to reseal the case, I popped this out. And we were looking at it, and this is basically the form. I'm going to pass it around and let you look at it. We were looking at these guys and trying to say, what do you suppose is going on in this tintype? I mean, who are these fellows and what are they doing? Well, when I popped that out, lo and behold, there was something written on the case on the inside. And what it was some lines from, I discovered, an early, a variant on an early Scottish hymn tune. And that hymn tune, this is what was written on the inside of the case, okay? When the passing world is done, when has set the glowing sun, know then, lovers. Think about that. When the passing world is done, when has set the glowing sun, know then, lovers. Now, you can take that in any number of directions that you want. But certainly when we're looking at the 19th century, are they talking about their relationship as brothers? Or are they talking about their relationship as lovers? We don't know. We don't know. But isn't it amazing that they should have their picture taken sealed in a case in which they have written these very touching words from a hymn. When the passing world is done, when set the glowing sun, know then, lovers. History, we don't know what they've suffered. We don't know what they've loved or who they've loved or how their life has been. But here they are, together in a kind of mystic background that I think is just wonderful. Okay, so there's the story for that. What? No, I'm okay. I apologize for my voice. I've been dealing with this for a week, and Karen was a little bit anxious that maybe, oh no, we're not going to be able to do this. Okay, so I did want to say something about the poodles here. I love this painting for a variety of reasons, but one of the reasons is have anybody been to a dog show? If you've been to a dog show, you can just imagine what this poodle and this little frisky character that doesn't want to be obedient is doing and what they're all about. And again, I was talking about the way you see the interior of a work is the kind of feeling and the quality of what animates a painting like that I just find very charming and open to so much imagination. She hasn't defined that this is a dog show. It may not be. It may be just some dog down the street. Again, it's left that all kind of indefinite. But you can't look at that painting and just kind of not feel good about it. I mean, there's just some life going on there. It's a lot of fun. The same thing is kind of true with this painting here. Does anybody know where this is?
It's the toy start box.
This is actually looking out the window of a studio at the Art Box. And this plane in the window, I just think does it. You know, this could be a child's room. It just so happens that the person whose studio this was, her father was in the Air Force. And so she still has this fascination with planes, but also a nice connection with her father, which you might not pick up on just by looking at it. And then, let's see, is there anything I want to talk about? Oh, I love this painting, this Singer sewing machine in the back. Is a gouache that she did in, what do they call those? A threesome? Triptych, that's what I'm looking for. It's a triptych. She did one that was very similar in style, in medium, a series of images of trains down at the train station. And they are fantastic, just absolutely fantastic. Well, a few years ago, that painting never sold, so she decided to give it to the train master. And it is now down in the station behind the desk. So if you take the train sometime, step in and you'll find it right there. A triptych done very much in the same style. And then she did another one with a typewriter, which I lifted out of the trash in graduate school that they had tossed away. An old Smith Corona, is that what it was? It was what? Underwood. It was the Underwood, yeah. Beautiful, beautiful painting, very similar to that. Then I think, just for the sake of time, yeah, we need to wrap it up. We'll talk about one more, and then if you have some questions or something, we can do with that. All right, let me talk about one last painting here to give you some inside stuff on it you probably don't know. This one right here. This one is called the Bronte Sisters. Now, this is not literally the Brontes, but my tintypes again. I found this tintype again from the 19th century, and I'll pass it around. It's two women who are sitting together studying, and as some of you may know, in England, it was not until 1870 or so that women were even allowed to go to university. And around 1870, they were allowed to attend the university, but they could not matriculate, which is to say, they could take classes, they had to take exams, they write papers, they did everything that men did, but they could not graduate, and they could not receive a degree until 1920. Okay, so when I saw this tintype, I just sort of imagined, well, I taught at a women's college, and I was, and still am, a very, very strong believer in the value of women's education and the importance, now perhaps more than ever, of women's education. So when we saw this, all kinds of stuff goes off when you look at a photograph from the 19th century and think, oh, geez. So Karen said, no, maybe it's the Brontes. Imagine that. So she went online, and she found some images of the farm in Wuthering Heights. So she took these women, these students, young women, she placed them in the field, in the farm of Wuthering Heights. And again, the pastel quality, the sense that this is a filmy image from the past, the imagination, it makes no attempt at being realistic. Representational, yes, but not realistic. We don't know whether those are the Brontes or not, but what fun to imagine. What fun to imagine. And so I thought maybe a way to stop talking is to share with you something that Karen shared with me from her journal that I think speaks to and sums up better than anything I've said what I think makes Karen such a wonderful and special artist. Or she'd be special to me anyway, but special as an artist. This is what she had in her journal, and she shared this with me. In order to make art, we must first make an artful life. A life rich enough and diverse enough to give us fuel. When we give our lives the gift of attention, our consciousness blossoms. Attention is an act of love, an act of connection. We become rich with images and impressions, find distinctions that confer distinction on our art. Great writers like the Brontes inhabited ordinary and limited lives. What was unlimited was the quality of attention they brought to bear on their experience. And that's really what art's all about. The quality of attention that we bring to bear on our experience. To make good art is to make and artful life. And Karen is doing that for me every day. Me and I are lucky well. Okay. Now, if there are comments, conversation, or questions, I will be happy to address them. Karen, as part of the deal, is to remain silent. Now, when we break up, we want to talk with her personally. I can't control what she says. Anybody have any comments or questions? Yeah.
I'm not an artist.
Really?
What's a wash?
What's a wash?
Wash.
Wash.
Gouache.
Wash.
Gouache. It's a medium. What?
Yeah.
It's a watercolor. It's an opaque watercolor with what's it? The base is like what is the base of a gouache?
Toothpaste.
What is it?
Toothpaste.
Toothpaste. Yeah, it's just
It's
a
like
it's a kind of thing.
yeah, it's great.
I'm very fascinated with the painting over there of the two brothers.
Yes.
Is that the title of it? The two brothers?
Brothers. Just brothers.
Okay, now when,
And maybe they are, maybe they aren't.
okay, when I look at that, and then I listened, I just looked at your tintype, and you read the little poem in the back of
The
it,
hymn, yeah.
the hymn, about love being lost at the end. Is that what?
Actually, love being revealed.
That's when love is revealed.
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess when I looked at that, now I can't tell from here, what kind of expressions are on their faces? Are they sad, happy, those two fellows over there?
I think they're feeling pretty good.
What do you do? What would okay.
Huh?
No.
Mellow.
Well, I think they somehow found a camaraderie there.
Camaraderie, yeah.
And the other thing I thought at first when I listened to you earlier was possibly maybe they both lost somebody they loved. And realizing that, they came together
It's very possible.
to be, they're sitting very close, and they're kind of off to the side, and there's space on the one side. He could have moved over further that way, but he didn't. They chose to be shoulder to shoulder. It's almost like they have found comfort in their twosome. The question is what that, what it is that
Yes, it is.
brought them together like that.
That is the question.
I just am fascinated.
It is. It's fascinating. That's part of the reason I love this early photography, because it can tell us so much in many ways about what America was experiencing in, the early to mid 19th century and up to the turn of the 20th. Tintypes are especially interesting because it was the first really popular access that people had to art. You could get a tintype for like 25 cents, which in the 19th century was no small sum. But still, before that, photography doesn't show up until 1839 in America, when we start to see daguerreotypes. But to have a daguerreotype made, it's going to cost you $10 to $15. Well, ordinary people can't afford it. That's way too much. But when the tintype emerges, all kinds of people started taking pictures. And you could have your picture made, for 25 cents. And so people would do all kinds of things, and they dress up and they do funky stuff. You'd see, you talk about cross-dressing, you'd see men dressing as women, women dressing as men. Just all kinds of outlandish things. And then there were all the drugstore cowboys. People go into a drugstore and you could get your picture taken, and you could put on a costume. You could look like the Old West. And there are a lot of drugstore cowboy tintypes out there. They're kind of hard to find now, but I've got a few that are just really fun. And you wonder, another story. Anybody else have comments, questions? Or would you like to, let's just take a break and you can actually ask the artist. Maybe she'll talk to you.